You're looking good, and it feels good to be with you today. Hello, I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter, author of this book, Consider My Servant Job, and this is News with the Eyes of Faith, where I talk about news from the perspective of Christ and the doctrine of Christ. As always, our first item is Joe Biden is still president. It's interesting, there's Matt Drudge has a report where maybe Joe Biden was having second thoughts about dropping out of the race. We'll probably never get a clear history about the power play that went on behind him dropping out, and Pelosi masturbating something or someone putting pressure on him so that Harris could run. There's going to be this ongoing autopsy about this last election. Report from Axios. Democrats 23% are almost 5 times as likely as Republicans, 5%, to say they'll spend less time with certain family members because of their political views, according to the post-election survey from PRRI. So why don't you think about that in terms of this model I've been discussing, friends, feelings, fairness, and friends, about what drives people on the left. And this is the last one, friends. Picking up social cues from other people, being other-directed, but also this what I call relationship terrorism. This is the friends aspect of the model, where they just need the community, and when they don't get community, they ostracize people as a serious punishment. That's not good, especially when you talk about diversity. But it's really more of a what you look like rather than the ideas you hold in your head. So another news item, Biden commutes most federal death row sentences to life in prison before Trump takes office. This is a good instance of mercy robbing justice. Remember that term I've been using, confusocracy, and basing things on feelings, just like how you feel when you see someone locked up. So you make a decision, okay, let's set this person free, but what are they going to do when they're, first of all, why did they get arrested in the first place? But what are they going to do when they go free? Now, here's another thing that I think is really confusing. You're pro-euthanasia, but anti-death penalty. And why is keeping someone locked up in prison more merciful than the death penalty? You ever think about that? Is that keeping someone alive and locked up, that's more merciful than the death penalty? It's incoherent attachment to contradictory ideas. The feeling you feel, you have these feelings, you have these incoherent feelings, you're just attached to all of them at the same time. That's really the basis for the confusocracy, or part of it, is that you're compartmentalized emotional attachments. Here's the next new item. Woke is the new disco. Hollywood and the Harris campaign. This is from Price Points on the Substack. I think that's a perfect persuasion. Woke is the new disco. That was a fad from 2020 into 2024. Now it's gone away. So that disco went away. Don't know how old he is, if he was alive in the 70s. And here's a positive news item. Oldest known stablet inscribed with the Ten Commandments sells for over $5 million. It's interesting. Apparently there's some heated, I think it was estimated at $2 million. After 10 minutes of debate, it went up to $5 million. Actually, after 10 minutes of debating, and so apparently going to donate it to a Jewish museum. Now, what's interesting is that you have things like the Notre Dame Cathedral, this attachment to the religious past, once again, an emotional attachment. One thing that always amazes me is that you have St. Basil's Cathedral right across the street from the Kremlin in Moscow, how that was never demolished. Now, the Soviets did demolish one cathedral, the Cathedral of Christ the Savior. They're going to build what was basically a sort of like a Statue of Liberty equivalent of Lenin. It didn't come through, so they turned it into a swimming pool, and the cathedral has since been rebuilt. But once again, feelings, these emotional attachments to things, like you're an atheist, you don't like God, and God lets all these evil things happen to you, but you like these cathedrals. That's really confusing. Latter-day Saint missionary president dies. 9th mission death this year. That was from the Salt Lake Trib. Now, I checked again this morning, and they change the title, but for President Jason Michael Soulier, we express our condolences to his family. But this ninth missionary death this year, that's sort of a gruesome telethon approach to deaths of missionaries. I remember a couple of decades ago, there's a site that put a list of people who were injured or killed on their missions. And in a certain sense, it's nice that someone's keeping track of it, but that's just really crass and disgusting. Americans continue to move from blue states to red states. That's from the Deseret News. And that's what happens. It's not so much white flight. It's just that these policies, the policies of the red states of the Democrats, just aren't working, and they're caused the system to collapse. And it's this model I've been talking about: feelings, fairness, and friends doesn't work. DEI and wokeness doesn't work. We tried it for 4 years. It's not working. And so people just, in order to survive, they're just fleeing these states. I'm one of them. I'm from California. The state's imploding. So what this is it's creating a situation where you have silos, regional, sectional. Once again, this is the relationship terrorism. You're being a toxic person. DEI is essentially anti-white. So we have to get out, people who are white just have to get to a place of safety where they have job opportunities and education opportunities. This is the otherizing. When you have a person who thinks it's okay to insult you because you see things differently, that's otherizing, and so you have to flee for your own safety. I wish it were otherwise, but there are limits to relationships and certain things you have to do for your safety. Canada, Liberals take a softer approach on the pledge to revoke charity status for pregnancy counseling. Trudeau has promised to no longer provide charity status to anti-abortion organizations that offer, quote, dishonest counseling to women. We've been seeing some interesting turnovers in politics. United States, Trump, Biden, Harris, Trump, Prime Minister Trudeau. He's having political issues. You have that prime minister in the United Kingdom. She lasted only a month. This is what the article from the National Post says. It's a Canadian paper. It's specifically named what they're known as crisis pregnancy centers, which operators say support vulnerable women, including providing information about abortion alternatives. So abortion. There's only one orthodox solution, and that's abortion. There's no alternatives. But the critics warn pose a risk because they're run by charities that oppose the procedure and can use deceptive tactics. So we all agree that we need truth in advertising, especially medical areas, to make an informed decision. But what's confusing about the process, about abortion and abortion alternatives? Saying that there's something confusing, that's confusocracy itself. It's an anti-reality model. There's just no confusion about abortion and what goes on with it, how women get pregnant. There's a book written a number of decades ago by M. Scott Peck called People of the Lie. You ought to give it a read. News item number 10, universal basic income. Not the panacea it's advertised as. I'm not sure about the grammar of that. But that's just a report from the Heritage Institute. Here's the 8 takeaways. UBI caused people to work less and earn less. Less work was used for more leisure instead of productive activities. UBI increased periods of non-employment and did not improve quality of employment. Initial improvements in food security disappeared over time. UBI recipients reported significantly more disabilities. Recipients reported no increase in access to or utilization of health care. 7. Benefits did not lead to lasting physical or mental health improvements. 8. Additional cash didn't improve personal finances. Isn't that what you're taught in the church? Brigham Young. This is from the Brigham Young Manual, Chapter 32. If the poor had all the surplus property of the rich, many of them would waste it on the lust of the flesh and destroy themselves in using it. For this reason, the Lord does not require the rich to give all their substance to the poor. It's true that when the young man came to Jesus to know what he must do to be saved, he told him, finally, sell all that thou hast and distribute unto the poor, and thou shalt have treasures in heaven, and come, follow me. And a great many think that he told the young man to give away all that he had, but Jesus did not require any such things, neither did he say so. He simply distribute to the poor. Yeah, it doesn't work in theory, it doesn't work in practice, but people are addicted to this. It's, once again, there's only an orthodox solution. The dogmatic and orthodox solution is universal basic income and abortion. Woman in the news. This is a little bit more about Alyssa Grenfell, and it was she had a short called "Use Wasatch Beer Finder to locate your perfect brew for the season." So it's funny. She was a member of the church, apparently very active, straight arrow. She got married, and apparently, from what I gather, her husband slowly tweaked and tapped her. And by the time she graduated, she was having doubts and concerns, and so she's finally left the church, had her names removed from the records of the church. It's sort of ironical that she was a missionary teaching the word of wisdom. Now she's doing the exact opposite, encouraging people to get drunk. And it's funny because the word of wisdom is probably one of the most objective things that Joseph Smith ever gave us. We can cite empirical evidence to support the word of wisdom. On our YouTube channel, basically this is what her slogan is: I gave up eternal life for coffee. Now think about this model I've been talking about: feelings, fairness, and friends. Now, what that does, that comes under the feelings aspect, the physical sensation of coffee, the savor. I don't drink coffee. I've never drunk coffee before. The caffeine jolt you get from coffee, the different flavors they add to it, the temperature, and you get a physical sensation off of it. And if your ethic is just physical sensation and feeling, of course you're going to go for that, hitting the bottle. It's sad, too, is that Alyssa has created a new addiction in her body. She didn't previously have this addiction to caffeine, and now she did. Now she does. She has this new addiction. I think it's interesting is that when people leave the church, they don't start robbing banks. They're good citizens, terrestrial behavior, but it's what it is. It's they hit the tea, the coffee, the booze, and temple garments, and maybe some grooming issues. Not sure about tithing if they donate 10% to charity anymore, but they're still decent people. But that's not the celestial standard. Terrestrials, honorable people. So let me conclude. When I ever have whatever I had talk about. Well, first let me say is that I paid attention. I decided to unfollow her just because criticizing the church that you left is you get your warning voice out, which I understand, but it's just being negative and backwards thinking, reliving trauma, and that's just not psychologically healthy. So let me conclude with President Nelson's statement. Let me be very clear about this. If the world loses the moral rectitude of its woman, the world will never recover. So church critics, there's 2 points about church critics. First of all, if you saw a movie you didn't like, would you be all right to go on social media and talk about it, or a restaurant, or a jazzercise club, or a yoga club, or a Dungeons and Dragons club? Well, yeah. And should the church be any different? Well, is a church part of a different category of things than these other clubs, since it is a spiritual organization? So you think about that. I won't give you an answer. The second thing is reliving trauma. Is that a healthy way to deal with it? It's backwards thinking and creates negative energy and focuses on problems rather than solutions. It's interesting what she's doing is she's just had this traumatic experience and she's just reliving it over and over again. I saw that one of Alyssa's videos was about all these rules she had to keep. And if someone goes to church and they're still thinking in terms of rules, that's wrong. They're taught incorrectly. It's about principles and covenants, not a set of rules you have to live by. But let's be honest, we've all had negative experiences with our church. No one's perfect. I've saw some things go on that still make me gasp and wonder. But one thing that's missing with Alyssa's and other church critics, criticism of the church is forgiveness. They're not forgiving the people who hurt them. If you did have a church leader said, okay, the church is really about following these rules instead of keeping covenants and developing character, yeah, you were taught wrong. The church isn't about organizing camping trips or rock climbing expeditions or what have you. Go back and read 3rd Nephi. There's no talk about activities in 3rd Nephi or no 4th Nephi. No, nothing about camping trips. But are you forgiving the people that hurt you in the church? Are you forgiving your family members? Also, if you had a family member of yours who left the church because they saw these critical videos, are you forgiving the church critics like Alyssa or Nemo? Forgiving them, John Delenn, and praying to have charity for these people? Yeah, I'd encourage you to do that. You're playing the wrong game if it's us versus them. It's just Christ versus Christ and everyone else. You need to forgive people. So here's a life hack strategy. Let me hit the end of this. It's the end of the year, and give you a life hack strategy for the new year. What's your strategy? Every time you do something, you have to come up with a strategy or a game plan. As a missionary, what's your game plan for your mission? Now that's a little bit complex because a mission goes for 2 years and you don't know where you're going, what language you're speaking. But what's your strategy for your companionship? And when you get a new companion, you think, okay, what's my strategy to make this companionship work? More importantly, how do you deal with disagreements? How do you disagree better? What's your game plan for improving as a missionary? Well, a lot of it's in preacher gospel and Christ-like attributes. If you get called to be a district leader, zone leader, AP, what's your strategy? Learning motivational skills and leadership skills. When you get transferred to a new ward, here's something I wish I had done. When you get to a new ward, learning the names, learning the names and the callings, the leadership. Also figuring out what their temperaments are. Get a feel for the ward. What's the ward like? You have a certain set of ideas and expectations, and other people may have different ones. How do you deal with that dissonance and difference of expectations to still be a successful missionary? Now, here's the same thing. This is for non-missionaries. What's your game plan for the next year? Last podcast, I talked about the success library. That was video number 20. The time between Christmas and New Year's is my favorite time of the year. It's this 1 week that we have that's really a dead week. So from Christmas to New Year's Day is 7 days. And it's when I do a lot of my planning, investing, setting up goals and benchmarks for the next year, what I'm going to do. Getting the carpet shampooed, that type of thing. You do all your calendaring, goal, and plan, and you plan your to-do list. M. Russell Ballard gave a talk called Return and Receive, where he talked about goal planning. Having a goal and having a plan are two different things. Think about that. And I also recommend this book by Scott Adams called How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. You can change your life by changing how you approach the new year and how you approach things. And it's setting up a strategy and a system approach rather than a goal and task approach. Well, I'm at 18 minutes. I hope you have a happy new year. And that's News with the Eyes of Faith.